unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacist.
A golden oldie. Actually, it was just a year and a half ago. Let's talk about it all with our panel. Bill Kristol, let me start with you. President Trump saying that he called out violence, bigotry on many sides, What did that say to you?
I mean, it was avoiding condemning the Nazis who were the reason the whole thing happened. And it was shocking, really, I've got to say. I mean, the events were horrible themselves and very depressing, and the deaths and the injuries. But President Trump's reaction was almost as depressing. And now his, people who work for him, I really shouldn't say work for him. They work in the White House. Tom Bossert, that was an excellent interview. I mean, he's the senior aide. He's not a political guy. He's not a political hack. He's not a Trump apologist. He's the White House Director of Homeland Security, and he can't say, until you press him for 15 minutes, that we condemn Nazism, we condemn Nazis, that they are the reason for this, the fundamental primary reason for what happened in Charlottesville. It's a very, and then, of course, Cory Gardner, the wonderful guy, good, nice senator from Colorado, even he is like, gee, if only President Trump would finally say the right thing. I hope he'll finally say the right thing. President Trump meant what he said and said what he meant, and I find that very depressing.
Michael, on its face, getting a politician of any party to condemn white supremacists, Nazis, and Klan members shouldn't really be that tough.
Right, and as you played that clip earlier, a couple days later on another show, President Trump was unequivocally condemning, the kind of washed-up racist gas bag that you had asked him about. And as conservatives, we should take every opportunity we can to condemn white nationalists and white supremacy, because we're condemned by this all the time by people on the opposite side. But having said that, I understand what he meant by both sides. I get that completely. I get that by watching the video yesterday. America is being destroyed by people on both sides thinking that the other side is destroying the world. America is being moved into chaos by people on both sides who think that they're better than anyone else on the other side. The rhetoric gets heightened, turns violent, and eventually you have the racist KKK fighting the fascist Antifa in the streets of Charlottesville. Both sides showed up with helmets and weapons.
Okay.
I see it very differently, and it's almost painful to have to point this out. You are correct that there is a problem of extremism in this country that cuts across. But this is a day in which after an American citizen was assassinated in broad daylight by a Nazi who the day before had been marching with torches down American streets saying anti-Jewish, anti-black stuff, and then an American, this is not a time to talk about both sides. Both sides are not using ISIS tactics, mowing people down with cars in the streets of America. Both sides are not trying to defend a horrific grandparents, great-grandparents, the people watching this show gave their lives to stop Nazism. Dr. King gave his life to stop the Klan. This is not a time to talk about both sides. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. But the President of the United States needs to come out and say, my daughter's Jewish, he could have said. If you're going to go off script, go off script and say, my daughter's Jewish. My son-in-law is Jewish. I don't want this in my country. Go off script and say that. Don't go off script and say many sides, many sides. That sends a signal to people that this is all right, and it's not all right.
And I think one of the issues here, and Michael, I'll come back to you, is that there are people who think, including Bill, just to enunciate this, that this isn't a mistake, this is on purpose.
Well, the president had a profound opportunity, Jake, and I think he still does. He needs to stand up and say, this was not by happenstance. What those KKK-inspired riots did, it was very strategic to start at night, to have candle-lit torches in their hands, to march in formation in that way. It's very reminiscent of why the KKK came to life in the first place after the Civil War, to rain terror down on African Americans. And so the president has to be very strong and cannot equivocate that racism and bigotry will not be tolerated. And I think I saw something that Bill said or wrote in a tweet, which is, I don't want your votes. But this is the overtness of what they did, because we know that covertly racism and discrimination and bigotry still exist in this country, but the fact that these people feel so emboldened and folks want to talk about both sides, I'm with Van on this, both sides. No, there was only one side, and we got to continue to have the people who believe in the promise of this country to continue to push or drag us forward, because we are a country of progress. And what we saw happen yesterday and the day before is very indicative. It's in the DNA of this country. So it always boggles my mind when people get up and say, this is not what our country is about. This is not what we were founded on. Oh, no, we were founded on discrimination, racism, bigotry, and hatred. But the one thing that we can say is that we have been a nation of progress, and we are losing that progress right now in the 21st century.
You know, I served with the first Bush administration. President Bush in 1991, David Duke was the de facto Republican nominee for governor of Louisiana, this same David Duke who showed up in Charlottesville and precipitated, and he and his allies precipitated the violence. It's not both sides. I very much agree with that, with Van on that and with you on that. But President Bush, he could have stayed out of it. Probably Edward Edwards was going to win anyway. President Bush insisted the day before the election on having a press conference in Washington and making clear that David Duke did not speak for him or for the Republican Party. He denounced David Duke very strongly. Bob Dole in 1996 at the Republican convention, Pat Buchanan had run that year. Incidentally, Pat Buchanan was about ready to launch his primary campaign against Bush in 91, and some of his political advisors said, yeah, you don't have to get into this. I mean, it's not necessary. Everyone knows you're a decent man. You're not like David Duke. And President Bush said, I am the President of the United States. I'm the leader of the Republican Party. I can't just be silent about this. Dole in 96 in his convention speech said to bigots who might have accidentally, as he put it, come to support him, here are the exits. You're not, we don't want you in the Republican Party.
And that's real leadership, and it's real leadership on the question of white supremacy, but also we need leadership on the question of terrorism. The oldest terrorist organization in the United States is not ISIS, it's the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, you have a terrorist organization who is publicly marching in our streets. I cannot imagine a situation, imagine Fort Hood, where a Muslim terrorist shot down a bunch of Americans, and the president comes out and says, well, there's violence on many sides. There would have been pandemonium, and justifiably so. When you have terrorism, white supremacist terrorism or any other kind, that is the time for clarity. And my problem with this president is he is very, very good at specifically going after his opponents. He goes after the media over and over and over again. He goes after this politician, that politician. He doesn't have, I denounced the media a year ago. I don't have to denounce them today. No, he denounces them several times a day. So there was an opportunity for him to say, listen, I am opposed to terrorism in my country. I'm opposed to white supremacy. And he didn't do it. And as a result, I'm concerned about these young white guys out there who is this legitimate? Is it not? I don't know.
Well, I think, like I said, I mean, white supremacy is an attack on all of America. It's against everything that we all believe in. I think the president, as you said, has an opportunity still today to continue to discuss this. I think he will. I think the signal that you got from Ivanka Trump and even from his own advisor during your interview shows that they're moving in that direction. I also believe that the president was trying to be prudent, and I think that it didn't go over well with the media. I get that. And if you're expecting...
It's not just the media, though, just to be fair. I mean, it was with Marco Rubio and Cory Gardner.
Ted Cruz.
These are political people. Let me
but I mean, I felt sick reading the president's statement. That's not a matter of political judgment.
Listen, I understand he's never going to check all your boxes.
No,
he's never going to check all your boxes.
I give him credit. Hey, listen,
his statement was strong, and if you didn't think it was strong, you're not listening.
But really? That was a strong statement?
He didn't say the name. That's all you have to say.
It's the depth
you didn't say the name. Until you guys condemn Antifa and the violence that they put
Who did Antifa kill?
They tried to kill people yesterday. They were using makeshift flamethrowers. They showed up in helmets carrying weapons.
This is the kind of moral equivalence. I do condemn them more than maybe. But can I say something else? This is just the kind of moral equivalence that conservatives especially denounced for 25, 35 years.
Since the Civil War, the KKK.
Let me tell you where you're right.
Do you understand the pain? I mean, my heart is skipping beats right now to think about all that my foreparents went through to get to this point in time in America's history, and to have in the 21st century the President of the United States not boldly stand up and say that this is wrong. People died for this, and people are in pain, having flashbacks. In the 21st century, we shouldn't be going through this. And so that is the point. The president, his daughter is not the president. I'm glad she tweeted that. Go Ivanka. But we need the President of the United States to determine in this country that this will not be accepted, period. This is painful.
And like after your interview during the election season, he came out later and condemned David Duke. I didn't even want to say his name. But I'll tell you, I think you'll see the same thing this time around. And I think that you're right. I think that he has an opportunity to do so. And if he didn't do it according to your specifications, I think you're going to be disappointed for 3 years.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, I am going to be disappointed for 3 years, and that's why you shouldn't be president.
Here's the thing. A lot of people,
you're disappointed?
No, because decent Americans of all sorts. I mean, I totally agree. The KKK marches. The KKK is a domestic terrorist organization that has a lot of. I'm sorry, that has a lot of blood on its hands and has for a century and a half. The Nazis, maybe you're not aware, we did fight them. Antifa, I deplore Antifa. No, what do you mean, come on?
What do you mean, don't? Come on. I'm not aware. I studied history as well.
So
my family fought the Nazis, okay?
Good.
I'm sitting here telling you that they should be condemned by no stretch of the imagination.
And did the President of the United States do that yesterday? Did he do that yesterday? Did he mention the words KKK? Did he say KKK? Did he say Nazis?
Listen, if he doesn't check your boxes, he's never going to check your boxes.
This is painful.
And like after your interview during the election season, he came out later and condemned David Duke. I didn't even want to say his name. But I'll tell you, I think you'll see the same thing this time around. And I think that you're right. I think that he has an opportunity to do so. And if he didn't do it according to your specifications, I think you're going to be disappointed for 3 years.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, I am going to be disappointed for 3 years, and that's why you shouldn't be president.
Here's the thing. A lot of people.
You're disappointed?
No, because decent Americans of all sorts. I mean, I totally agree. The KKK marches. The KKK is a domestic terrorist organization that has a lot of. I'm sorry, that has a lot of blood on its hands and has for a century and a half. The Nazis, maybe you're not aware, we did fight them. Antifa, I deplore Antifa. No, what do you mean, come on?
What do you mean, don't? Come on. I'm not aware. I studied history as well.
So
my family fought the Nazis, okay?
Good.
I'm sitting here telling you that they should be condemned by no stretch of the imagination.
And did the President of the United States do that yesterday? Did he do that yesterday? Did he mention the words KKK? Did he say KKK? Did he say Nazis?
Listen, if he doesn't check your boxes, he's never going to check your boxes. It's not going to happen.
Let me just say something really quickly. You may think that we just give him a hard time no matter what. I have given him credit when it was due.
I know you do.
There was a part of his speech yesterday that was really good. It was when he went off script. And he didn't go off script to go tougher. He went off script to go looser. That's when people got upset. And so be fair to we'll be fair to you. You be fair to us.
You're right. But I want you guys to condemn Antifa as well. When that happens, you'll gain credibility on that.
Any type of violence, but there's not the same.
We'll continue this in the green room.
Flamethrowers.
Thank you for watching. I'm Jake Tapper in Washington. For Read Zakaria GPS starts now.